welcome everybody to our real estate investor meeting here for Leanne Riley's Real Estate Investing Club. And today is pretty exciting because we are interviewing Mark Fischer. You can see his picture here. And we're talking about how do you get serious about retiring? So right now we're talking about Mark's upcoming bike ride until we get started for how 60 something miles, Mark?
68.2 miles, which is 110 kilometers, is part of the Minnesota Ironman, although there's no swimming or running. This is entirely a bike ride.
And where do you ride from and to?
We start in Shakopee, and there are different routes. There's short and medium and long, and this is actually the medium ride.
Wow. I think it, and I love what you said based in this. I'm sure you did the research. Physically, if you can do it 2 or 3 times about halfway, you can do the one-time big push.
Right. Yeah. That's my understanding, that whatever you can bicycle comfortably, you can do double that in a pinch, which is, I don't have the time to bike 68 miles a lot in preparation, because at my rate, that would take me probably 7 or 8 hours plus recovery time. So, I can't devote that amount of time.
Yeah.
So I think it's like a lot of things in life, we figure out the best way to do them and how to accomplish them without giving everything else up. So that's what I'm doing, preparing, working my way up to that. And I'm just about there now. And I've got a month till the race.
1 month. Okay. Interesting. Okay. I am going to stop our share only because I've got Jeffrey keeps showing up, and I've got to, I'm not sure why. Can you see him on your screen?
No, but I'm looking at participants, and there are now 6 people.
Okay, but I'm seeing his name at the bottom of mine, and I'm not sure. Let's see here. Because I made him just a participant. He's not a panel.
Hey, Jeff. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah. I have my camera turned off. That's why you can't see me.
No, it's not that. It's just that you shouldn't even be able to talk to us. Wonder why.
I shouldn't?
But let's see.
That's because I'm special.
Yeah, I know. You are special because your name is showing up on here, and yet I don't have you as a panelist. I'm just trying to figure out what to do with you.
Well, don't worry about it. I won't say too much.
If I remove, if you get disconnected, will you dial back in?
Sure.
Okay. Nope, that's not the button because it says you can't rejoin. So, boy, I don't know. I'm just hoping that the other people can't see your name, because that's what I see. Your name is sitting here now, right next to us.
Okay.
That's my problem, but it says I can't. That's the darnest thing. I don't know what to do with you. Oh, well.
I mean, you want me to leave out and then come back in, see if that helps?
Yeah, why don't you do that? I won't kick you out. You just leave and then you come back.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. All right, folks, it's at 3:59. We're getting ready to go live here. Well, we already are live on Facebook. So welcome everybody who wants to find out about real estate investing. That's what we're here for. But we're about retirement. And what's exciting is the biggest thing about real estate investing, the main reason that everybody that I work with wants to do it is we want to get to retirement faster. So I thought it'd be really cool to talk about, okay, what are we going to do when we get there? And that's where Mark comes in. So okay, we're 4 o'clock now. So I'm going to We took the share screen off, so we're good there. We're going to get started. So let's see here, my view. I can only see Mark, but I'm trusting you guys can see me. So we'll get started. So welcome to Leanne Riley's Real Estate Investing Club. Hey, hi, everybody. I do live interviews with expert speakers and leaders in real estate investing nationally. I'm Leanne Riley, broker and real estate coach. Okay, wait, somebody says I can't see you. Thank you for that, somebody. I'm going to fix that here because so they must only be able to see Mark. So hang on a second. We got a technical thing going on here. It's over in this view thing, I bet. Wait, I got a note here. Alt F2. Got to try technicals. There we go. Good job. I had my secret notes out here about how to do the tech. Okay, can you see me now? Yes. Perfect. Thank you, people, for clearing that up. So I'm Leanne Riley, broker and real estate coach, and I lead the Encore investment team of realtors here in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. And I built a multi-million-dollar portfolio in residential, multifamily, condo development, commercial, and vacation properties. And as a national coach and trainer, I help ambitious people build wealth as real estate investors with my proven profit formula coaching program. And I provide free education like this today with my real estate investing club and my YouTube channel. It's called Leanne Riley Real Estate. And be sure and subscribe. There is a lot of information about real estate investing. I interview property managers and hard money lenders and people like Mark. So check that out. And today's topic is investors get serious about retiring. And my guest is Mark Fischer there. And he is a former financial planner and he's an author of the book Serious About Retiring. And Mark will share with us his holistic and research-oriented approach to retirement planning. He's a retirement coach and a speaker, and he also co-authored a book called Mapping Your Retirement. And the reason I wanted Mark is because most investors, their big why of investing in real estate, it's all about earning passive income and getting to retirement the quickest that they can. But really, what is retirement? That's what we're going to talk about. So Mark, I'm so glad to have you as our guest today.
I'm pleased to be here. Thank you.
Good. And I always share, how did I meet my speakers? And I do this because real estate investing is all about networking. And somehow Mark's Serious About Retiring caught my attention somewhere, and I signed up for his newsletter, and I bet it's a good 3-4 years ago because I've been reading them when they come. He's got one of the ones I open. I like his attitude, and I really fell in love with that, the way he wrote. And then I learned he was from Minneapolis. And so I called him up and set up a meeting, and you know what? We really jived that day, sitting out on his patio, and we're both living life to the fullest. So I'm excited to bring him here to talk to us about retirement and real estate. So Mark, give us a background about what led you to write a book about being prepared for retirement.
Well, I have always liked numbers, and I grew up, I started investing at age 8 in stocks and mutual funds. It was a family hobby that I did with my father. I went in a different direction towards science, which I did for a while. And then in my 40s was when I decided to convert my hobby into my profession. And so I retired a year and a half ago, but I was a financial planner for 34 years. And As a financial planner, we talked about investments, including real estate and, of course, stocks and bonds and other kinds as well. But I found myself talking with them about their families and their work and their health, which were every bit as important to them, maybe more so than their money. And so the more we talked, I learned an awful lot from them, and I reached a point where I felt I wanted to share that with other people. And I thought a book would be a very effective way of doing that. And it was a 4-year venture. I don't know how many drafts I had of the book, maybe about a dozen. But it came out and it's fun. And I particularly wanted to be as holistic as possible to include a wide range of topics. So the investing is about half the book, and then the other issues are about half the book. And then there's a third part in how do you implement, but that's relatively brief here. So that's the story of the book.
Cool, cool. And your wife is an author, so you had a little
Yes.
bit of help about how to publish a book,
Yes.
I bet.
I think that's one of the big lessons that I've learned in life is to find partners to work with. And I'm very fortunate that my wife, my life partner, is very skilled at what she does and has been an incredible resource for me. And of course, I do my part to help her in her work as well.
Cool, cool. So before we get started with all these questions I have for Mark, I'm going to do a real quick poll of who our listeners are. So it'll come up on the screen here. Let's see, launch the poll. Here we go. I just want to know where you are in your real estate investing journey. So Phil, just pick one of these, make your vote, and it'll figure out, this helps Mark and I see who we're talking to as far as real estate investors, because that's usually on here. I love Mark's topic because it is more holistic. And you know what? All of us, even if we're investors or business owners, we have a whole life and it's a whole circle. It's not just that one thing. So it looks like who we got on here. I'm going to give you about 10 more seconds to vote. It looks like the winner is buy and hold people, which I love that strategy, you guys, because that is how you make passive income, by buying and holding that property. The tenant pays it down and you're getting it appreciating, and then there's a nest egg there. Our next category, let's see here. I think it figures it out for me. Yep. Share the results. Here you go. So definitely buy and hold. We got some starters, a few fix and flippers. That's for the quicker money. House hackers, that's our millennials that want to live in that first investment property. The BRRRR strategy, they're fixing it and refining. And we got realtors. I always get realtors on here. So thanks so much for voting for us today. And we'll get back to, okay, is the screen clear, everybody? I think it is. All right, here we go. Mark.
Fire away.
All right, in your experience, what's the 3 biggest mistakes people make when they're preparing for their retirement?
Well, thank you for asking that question. And you did show me that question, so I've had a little chance to think about it. I think the biggest mistake is not understanding the scope of what retirement can be. I give a talk called 8,000 Days because that's how much time there is between age 65 and the normal life expectancy of around 87. If you're financially successful, on average, you'll live longer than that, probably into your 90s. And we certainly know people who have lived into their 90s and some even beyond that. So the fact that this retirement, by the way, I hate that term, although I use it all the time because common parlance. I like the word journey or stage. I think, if you go from full-time work to do something else, that's your next stage. And, from age 65, you may have more than one stage. But because you may have 30 years, there are challenges and opportunities. The challenge is your money has to last long enough to give you your income over your entire lifespan. So you have to have enough money to be able to sleep at night. And there is the challenge with what you're going to do with your time, which I see as an opportunity. If you only had 3 years or 5 years from retirement, that's not much time. Your bucket list may work perfectly well for that. But over a longer period of time, your bucket list gets spread out, and there's a lot of other time to do a variety of things, to get involved, to build something if you want, to engage with other people. And to make a contribution to the world around you if that's important for you. And I hope it is. I think it is for most people, particularly as you get older. I think you realize you're not going to be here forever. So
you better leave a legacy.
Make a difference. So that's the first mistake, is not taking that into account. The second I've already mentioned, and that is it's really helpful to have partners to bounce ideas off to. Partners have skills that you may not. They have experiences you may not. They may have insights you may not. They can support you. And I think if you're creative, you can find partners to help you in many of your activities throughout life. The third mistake is not really thinking through how the cash flow is going to work. And I mean, having a spending plan, having a sense of what your money is going to be used for. Because as we all know, you can spend the money only once. And if you dip too much into it too early, you run the risk of running out later. So it's very helpful. Now that I am retired myself, I'm doing budgeting on a quarterly basis. I want to know where the money's going so that we can make decisions about things like travel and exceptional things that we want to purchase, and what kind of gifts we want to make to family members and to charities of different kinds.
I've got a bunch of questions to ask kind of about that because, I am of retirement age, if we call it that, Medicare, but yet, I have no intention of like retiring soon, but I also, I'll just tell the story. I made millions in real estate and thought I was set for life for retirement. That to me was set for life money wise. And then I had a bad divorce and I ended up flat broke at age 50 and I had to recreate. And now I'm sort of like running the race to make sure I have enough, because I'm a single person.
Well, you're in good company because a lot of the most successful people did go bust at some point in their career. Walt Disney went bust 3 times.
Yeah.
And there's just so many stories like that. In terms of retirement, the reason I don't like the word is, first of all, it includes the word tired.
It does.
And retirement can be a time of relaxation and probably will be one of the activities that we all choose. But frankly, I think it's all about quality of life. Now, when you give up full-time work, you give up actually a number of things. and that becomes one of the challenges. We'll talk about
Yeah, I got that question.
But frankly, if you're working and you love what you're doing, why stop? I mean, my wife is an artist and a writer, so that means when my wife would turn a certain age, she couldn't paint anymore. I
Yeah,
mean,
no.
that's a ridiculous concept for that occupation, and clearly there are an awful lot of entrepreneurs who continue working, but maybe people slow down in their
Yeah.
work, gives them
I
more freedom to do other things.
I loved that you said that somewhere in your book or when I was preparing, that one of the things that helps our brain or helps us when we retire is to start a business. I really loved that because I totally agree. You know, I wouldn't, yeah, I'm not ready, or I don't know what to do to retire, but I like the slowing down. And that's why I have built my businesses so I can slow down. That's why I have a team.
Right. And if certainly if you have enough money and assets, and don't have to generate an income, then you have that freedom and flexibility. I like to think about, instead of working towards retirement, working towards financial independence.
Oh, I like that.
And
Yes.
financial independence means that you've got the resources, so it's your choice what you're going to do. Are you going to work? Are you going to get paid for it? You're not going to get paid for it, or not. If you're financially independent, it's your choice. And it doesn't even have to be a choice for life. It's a choice for now. And you can always change your mind. And I think most retirees do. It's not just, a straight arrow for what people do.
I love what you said about financial independence, because that's why real estate investing is even more popular now than it has been in the past, because the younger people realize it is a path toward financial independence.
Right. Especially, one of the issues is, when do you start preparing for retirement? And the answer is always, probably before you did, or ASAP. I think it's best, not to blame yourself. It's not about blame, but you should start as soon as you can. Um, in the real estate area, generally people will have a mortgage on a property, so the bank will help, or some other organization will help finance it. And then if you start early, there's an opportunity to pay off the mortgage. And then all those payments that were going there are available for you for income. So if you start late, it's a little harder to pay things off. There are other advantages of the increase in value in the real estate, as Leanne already mentioned. There's the appreciation, and of course the huge tax benefits from the real estate as well.
Exactly. And you can even, I've seen a lot of people doing this right now. They're refinancing to get that cash out to use it maybe to start a business or to whatever, it's an opportunity it gives you some funding when you need it. So the big question, that I think a lot of people think is, how will you replace your paycheck? And then how long will that savings last? Because that's what supposedly people are saving or investing for retirement. But how long will it last? And when you said 2,000 what days?
8,000 days.
8,000 days. That's a lot of days for it to last.
It is. It is. Well, in the investment area, is defined as a mixed portfolio of stocks and bonds. The usual guideline is, you can feel comfortable, if it's effectively diversified and growth oriented, to take out 4% a year. So if you have $500,000 of investments, you could take out $20,000 a year and have that $20,000 go up by the rate of inflation each year and have it last for 30 years. So if you retired at 65, that would carry you through 95. Now, there are
If
no,
you had $500,000.
yeah, if you had double, then it's twice as much. You have half or a quarter, it's right in proportion. Now, I think in the real estate area, what you've got for increasing your income in retirement is the appreciation of the property. So if the value of the property is going up, then and you're charging higher rents, then the income is going to go up. So it's more similar than it may at first appear in comparing other investments.
It is. It's just like the stocks, only in some ways it's maybe more controllable. I don't know. What do you think about that?
It's totally more controllable. I mean, if you really think what you're doing, if you buy a share of stock, which is a share of a company, you're not managing the company. You're not making any decisions. You're trusting them that they're going to do a good job, that they've got a team in place, they've got the resources, they've got good ideas. You do have more control in the real estate area because each property you can make a decision how you want to be involved and how much of your own sweat you're going to be putting into that. There are some challenges with the real estate. I think one of the biggest is the liquidity. So if you own a property and you want to buy a new car, and so you need $30,000 or whatever the amount is to buy a new car, you could sell some shares of stock. But if your money is in a piece of property, you can sort of get at it, but it is more challenging to tap into the equity in a property.
I like what you said because it is more controllable. And this is where investors get in trouble, is when they're not sure how. And that's usually beginners or someone who only owns one property or something. And that's exactly the kind of person that I help with my proven profit formula, because it's only 7 weeks and it's 7 basic principles that once you have those under your belt, you can navigate this okay. It's like me. I don't trust myself in the stock market. I have to go to a financial planner that I do trust, because I don't have the information to do it. And it's kind of the same. So really, if you're going to do the real estate by yourself, here's a great example. There's a guy and his wife just bought a duplex. And then I met him right after they closed on it. And then he joined my program. And, once they analyzed it, guess what? It wasn't really cash flowing. And had they have known what they learned right away in 2 or 3 weeks, they would have never bought that one. They would have bought a different one. So we need guidance with our money.
That's one of the challenges of real estate, is that every single property is unique. As distinct from one share of Apple stock is identical to another share. And so it's easier to value and to transfer ownership. Investing in property, I think, does take more skill to be able to do that effectively. And similar to investing in stocks, diversification helps. So if you have more than one property, that is a help. If it's a different kind of property, that helps. And since you want your money to be there for a variety of objectives, one way to do that is to have different kinds of investments. So you could have real estate and say a mutual fund portfolio. And that would give you some liquidity, and it would give you some stability and control from the real estate.
Yep. Yep. So when should one begin to save or start planning for retirement? I think everybody kind of saves, but then when do you really start making a retirement plan? How old are you?
I chose the title of my book very carefully because if you're serious about retirement, you can be 20 years old and using your 401k and contributing to it, maybe getting a match from your employer. And so you're serious about your retirement by saving. But when you're serious about retiring, that's, I don't know, 5 years before, 10 years before. I think it depends on how much of a planner you are and how much you're thinking. Well, I think realistically, what happens is you see your buddies retiring.
Mm.
And so there's kind of a fever, there's an excitement, and people talk a lot about and start to think what they're going to be doing in their own retirement. How much planning they do is another question. Clearly, in the investment area, it really helps to reconfigure the investments because you may have investments that are there for growth, and if you want income, you may want to set things up differently. The same thing may be true, I think, in the real estate area. You may want to think of it differently if you're investing for growth or for the income that's going to be generated.
Exactly. And in real estate, if you hold a property too long, you've lost a lot of the tax benefits and some things like that.
Right.
So sometimes it's like, okay, we just need to turn the portfolio, not that any of those are bad investments. It's just, you're not getting all the full benefits. Right. So, is there a certain amount of money needed before you set some aside? So like first you better make sure all your bases are covered. You can pay all your living expenses and then you start setting it aside. Or I love what you said. Just no, that'll never work.
You know why? Because everybody that I've ever met has a reason not to put money aside.
Yep.
So if you're 25 years old, well, you got student debt and you got to worry about that. And maybe you're looking to start a family and that's going to be expensive. And then maybe you're saving up for a house. So when you're in your 30s, maybe you're buying your own house and so on. There's a reason not to start all the time.
Yep.
Of course, the longer you wait, the more challenging. It's like going from the first to the second floor. If you have a lot of steps, they're not necessarily very steep. But if you have a small number of steps, they're going to be very steep to get up to that next floor. So plus, Albert Einstein said that man's greatest invention, and of course he meant people's greatest invention, was compound interest, which can work for you or against you. And so the earlier you start, whether it's with property or anything else, it's got an opportunity to grow. And that growth also generates growth. So you get growth upon growth upon growth. And that's what it comes. It's not just putting more money aside. It's having the time to grow.
Yes. I totally, really, I get that personally because when, I did that early on, and actually when I was getting divorced and it was difficult, I was able to cash in some of my early on investments to get me through a tough time.
Right.
Ideally, it'd be great to leave them all there, but they were there when I needed them,
Yeah, there's always the issue of emergency funds, and you went through, I would call, a fairly severe emergency.
I did, a big emergency.
Yeah. So
I had to feed the kids, you know?
yeah, that would be an emergency.
Okay, and really, if you look statistically, do people wait too long to figure this out?
I think people wait longer maybe than they should have, but even if you haven't saved in your 50 or 60,
Start.
it's still better to start than 5 years from then. So you have an opportunity to put some money aside and to have it grow. You have to be realistic. It's not going to have as much time to grow if you start really late, but it's still way better putting money aside when you can. And if you said, well, how much should you put aside? The answer is always as much as you can.
Yeah.
But that's not a very good answer. The numbers that I've seen, I've seen the calculations, and it's much more modest if you start early. It can be in the 5 to 10% range, but as you get older, you should think about putting 10 to 20% aside. I know that sounds kind of ridiculous, but if you use, for example, a 401k plan, um, you can put money in a tax advantaged way. Um, and my understanding is that it's possible to set up an IRA to own property.
Yes.
So if you save through work and you don't see the money and you don't spend it, so if you earn $100 a week and you bring home 80, you spend the 80. If you bring home 70, you spend the 70. So that whatever goes there, and of course you're not paying taxes on that, so it's way easier to save through that. And if you're working for yourself, you can set up your own retirement plan. It doesn't have to be through an employer. If you can be, I have my own 401k plan. It's mine is a solo. I have no employees, but you can set that up and put I think a fairly considerable amount of money aside. And then there are even fancier plans you could put more aside. And if you have your heart set on real estate after you've got it in there, you can convert your 401k to an IRA. And then if set up properly, you can have the IRA on real estate.
Yep.
It's not something that's that easy to do. It's not always really cheap to do. Because I think you have to get a tax ruling and you work through an attorney to do that.
It's actually it's not that hard, but you better darn well have a good agent, because the one rule on that is you can't go over there and pound a nail. You can't nothing. So you can't touch that real estate because the IRA owns it.
Right, because an IRA can't own a business,
exactly,
but it can own property. So you have to go the extra mile to demonstrate that's what's
so
happening.
A lot of people, actually, I work with a lot of out-of-state investors. California particularly lately is all about the Midwest, and they don't even, a lot of times they buy and don't even come here, but they buy with their IRA, and that way they're not tempted to do anything.
Right.
So this brings me to something that, I guess I wasn't thinking, but you were sharing with me, taxes are the single largest expense in retirement. What do we do about that?
Well, first of all, I mean, most people don't understand that. And the reason that's the case is, particularly if you've been successful financially, there's something called the required minimum distribution, which now starts at age 72. And the IRS has a rule that says if you've got a retirement plan and you're not working in that business, you're required to take money out of your IRA. You don't have to spend it. You could take it out and invest it someplace else, but you have to take it out. And when you take it out, you have to pay taxes on it. So around age 72, you take out around 4%. And then as you grow older, you take out a larger and larger proportion every year. So um, if you think about it, it depends on how large your IRA is. If it's very small, not an issue. But if it's a 500,000 or 1 million or more, let's say it's $1 million, and you're taking out 4%, that's $40,000 that you're adding to your taxable income, which also makes your Social Security taxable. Up to 85% of it becomes taxable. So, and and if you live in a house that's paid off, or you don't have a large mortgage payment, what else are you spending a lot of money on? It's so almost by default, it's the taxes that can be a substantial expense. It depends.
You
But
have to, well, you got to get organized around all that and plan.
Right.
And like,
Right.
I'm actually a proponent of not paying off your mortgage at home. There's several reasons why, but this is another one of not just don't pay that off.
Yeah.
Pay
Right.
it down, but don't pay it off.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who that's their big goal. I got to pay it off.
Right.
I would rather reinvest some of that money into something else.
Yeah, the disadvantage of paying everything off is that all your money is tied up in a property and it's illiquid. And so to the extent you're going to need to tap in it, you tap into it, you got a problem.
Right.
So
Yeah.
right. I mean, if you pay it partly off, then you have your home equity, and that is tappable. You can
Yeah, it's there to get if you need it. That's what I figure. And if I'm going to leave it to my kids or whatever, they're both said they'd fight over it because they want to both live here. But if you're going to hand it on, whether they get money or the property, I've taught them what to do with it. They know real estate.
Good.
Either way. So now once a person retires, what is the tax rate? Is it suddenly more than the normal, whatever tax bracket you're in?
No, it's the same. It's the same tax rates. If you earn 40,000 to 160,000, marginal tax bracket is 22-24%, something in that range. Of course, you earn more, the tax rate is higher. You earn less, tax rate is lower. So figure a quarter. Of course, you have to add in state tax as well. So it will be more than a quarter.
It's really that one pocket you were just describing where if you have to pay taxes on your Social Security money too, that can add up.
Yes, it can. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you explained the required minimum distribution. So every year you've got to take this money out, and maybe that's why people spend their IRAs on real estate too.
Could. I mean, as I said, taking it out of a retirement plan doesn't require you to spend it. You just have to take it out and pay taxes on it.
But if you spent it on real estate, you're lowering the amount in there.
Right.
And you're still earning income on it if you bought the right real estate. Yeah. Okay. What about REITs? That would be real estate investment trusts for you people who are listening. What about if you put it over there?
A REIT is a mutual fund of properties. That's all it is. A mutual fund is a collection of investments. A REIT is a collection of properties. And just as there's so many different kinds of property, there are equivalent number of kinds of REITs. There can be a shopping mall REIT. There can be a multifamily apartment REIT, which would mean there would be multiple properties. And some of them are public and some are private. Public means You can buy shares in a publicly traded REIT, just like in a mutual fund. If it's a private deal, then that means there's no market for it. It's private, just like you own a private piece of property. And then if it's not yours and you're not managing it, you can't if it's 100 million or 600 million in properties. You're not going to own the whole thing yourself. So it's not liquid until the people
Right.
managing it.
That's the syndication, which is real popular now, except the issue that I hear people say is, that it's a long play. You got to put your money in and
It's
wait.
a long play. In my own experience, probably longer than they ever say it's going to be. So, there are a lot of promises made, particularly in that area of REITs and some other private deals, and it takes a while to get
It's not
things
liquid.
figured
It
out.
falls in that not liquid category, not like the stock where you can just
Right.
take it out.
Right.
I see we have a question here. Oh, it's Renee. Hi. What are your thoughts regarding debt in property as a hedge against inflation?
Well, it helps now that interest rates are so low. I mean, to me, the idea of locking in a rate that could be, in some cases, as low as 2 or 3%. In the investment area, it's going to be more than that. But it makes a lower hurdle. If you have a lot of debt and you're buying things that way. Debt can be risky. So you need to think carefully about that. I mean, a lot of people lost their homes around 2008 and 2009 by having mortgages that were more than they could really afford. They were hoping that things would increase like they had in the past, and that didn't happen. So they were underwater and they ran into problems. So I would recommend that you think carefully about taking on a lot of debt.
And that's why I'm all about cash flowing properties. If they cash flow when you buy them, I know how to make them cash flow even more. That's kind of what I teach people. Okay, but now we're not counting on appreciation. It'll be there, but that's not part of the formula when you buy it. You're buying the cash flow and then you're maintaining and growing it. And that way, even if the economy goes down or whatever happens, people have to live somewhere. And we certainly see that now when vacancy rates are so low and they can't build fast enough.
Right.
Great question there. And, on that one, I did a month ago, I did a live stream all about the market trends. And I did talk a lot about real estate as a hedge against inflation and how and why it works. And there's some formulas. I really did a lot of research. It's a pretty good, it's on YouTube. So, okay, let's see here. Your book. Okay, something in your book. It's about excited to get up in the morning retirement. What's that look like?
Well, that's my passion right now. And the general idea is that when you are retired, you're busy. Everybody's busy. The question is, what are you busy with? So if you look at the psychology research about the kinds of activities that are more than busy, that people become really engaged in, it means spending time or investing time in activities that bring you joy, that maybe they're easy to do, they're fun to do. Maybe they use some of your skills so that you can contribute. Just to give you an example, one of my retirement activities is volunteer work for a vocational school in town, and I'm teaching a financial literacy course, figuring that people who are going into the workforce may not have the experience that they need, that we all learn the hard way. If I can make it a little bit easier for them. But this is wonderful for me, and it brings me joy because I'm helping other people and I'm using some skills, some things that I know something about. Um, that is something that is part of my purpose, and the purpose can be achievements, things that I accomplish. Um, if you are retired and you're not working on anything, whether it's a hobby, a serious hobby, or a volunteer activity, or anything like that, are you going to really get excited to get out of bed in the morning?
Yeah, like
So it's
watching.
about quality of life, and that's true at any age, but when you're working full time, that really takes a lot of your attention. So what I mean by that is when you leave work, you leave not just your income, but you leave your colleagues, um, and you leave the opportunity to achieve things, to use your creativity. You leave the structure of your time, and you may even leave your identity behind. So what that means is to have that high quality of life in retirement or in your next stage. Uh, it means thinking about those traits of full-time work. And it doesn't mean you need to go to work, but it means it may help you to think about structuring your time and having some achievements and using some of your creativity and being with other people and establishing some kind of identity if you focus some of your energy and time on particular activity.
Yeah, because watching TV or whatever all day is, I mean, your body's going to atrophy. I mean, it's not exciting.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I've heard people say, I love golf and I just couldn't wait. And after several months of golf 7 days a week, and I didn't have a weekend anymore because the weekend was the same as the weekday. I still love golf, but there was something kind of missing.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about here, is finding that missing element that's going to bring joy.
And you're a coach, a retirement coach, and you have a program. Do you help people figure out
Right,
what that is?
Yeah, I've got some courses in place, and I'm developing that will help people learn that skill of building a life of purpose, because it is something that can be learned and therefore can be taught. And so I'm devoting as one of my retirement activities is helping other people figure that out.
Okay, we got a couple of questions here from some folks here. We got some, let's see here. If you have a collection of several 401ks and some allow only a full withdrawal instead of increments, how do you plan to manage that?
Well, most people, if you're working and you have your income, you don't care particularly. It's only when you're going to need that 401k money to live off. So what people do is you can roll over or transfer the 401k to an IRA, which gives you all the flexibility you need in terms of which investments and how much you take out and when.
I
So most
okay, I get it. So rollover is the answer.
it's a rollover. Yeah, it has to be done carefully, so you don't run afoul and have to pay taxes on the whole thing. But if
Yep.
it's rolled over properly, um, actually, there are multiple kinds of rollovers, or transfers and rollovers. So that's what I mean about doing it carefully.
I just did a rollover and I didn't quite understand why or what, but I knew they
Yeah.
explained it and I knew it was what I needed to do. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. Give me the paper.
Yeah, one kind of rollover, you can only do one in a 12-month period. And then if it's a transfer, you can do an unlimited number. So that's what I mean about being careful. And if you're working with a professional, then they're gonna
They know
be
those.
very familiar with what the rules are.
Okay, we got another one. Any suggestions on where to search for health insurance before we qualify for Medicare? If you're self-employed, I think that's what she.
Yeah, I think this is one area where a professional is the right person to talk with. I haven't worked personally. I haven't worked very much with health insurance, but I know there are health insurance brokers. That's what they do for a living.
I know a guy, Renee, so I'll hook you up with.
Good.
Okay, so now, this life purpose work, I really like this because I'm a certified master coach. I'm trained in helping people find their life purpose. And for me, when I got trained to be a coach in 2000, I got to figure out my life purpose. And it was a lightning bolt to how I lived my life. Once I figured that out, it's the compass.
Right.
So that's in essence what you help people, and you better darn well know that for retirement, or you'll be wandering.
I like very much the group approach that I've used in the classes because it gives people an opportunity in the class to learn from each other. Now, when I teach a class, I also do individual coaching to help the people in the class. But if you are meeting with other people in the class and you're all generating ideas and you share them with each other, you can get support from each other. I always tell people to steal each other's ideas. If you hear a really great idea from somebody else, you can consider that as something that you might want to do yourself. So the students in the class are a resource for each other. And I think that really adds something to a class. So I've done this really for philosophical reasons. I think it works better.
Well, and you're helping people reframe their mindset around what this 8,000 days looks like, right?
Yeah, and actually, one of the challenges is for people to think outside the box. That I think the natural tendency to say is, oh, well, I think I know what I'm going to do. I've got a certain number of hobbies, and I'll just spend more time on them. And that may work to some extent. It may not, but it's really helpful to do the right kind of brainstorming, to generate a lot of ideas, because I found that people come up with better ideas if they do better brainstorming. And I also encourage people to think big in retirement. Have a bold, imaginative goal, BIG. And just like you were mentioning, Leanne, you can start a business in retirement. As a matter of fact, there are more retirees starting businesses than people in their 20s. So it's actually become more and more common for people to do it. If you think about it, you got more resources
Yeah, more
as
time.
a 65-year-old than a 25-year-old has. So it's certainly a possibility, but there are a lot of big things that you can do. I'm going to turn my screen so you can see my cello here that I took up at age 73. So I knew that cello is a tough instrument to learn, but I see this as a bold, imaginative goal, as something I've wanted to do, and I'm willing to invest some of my time learning how to do it. And I find it frustrating but joyful. So it's possible to include both words in the same sentence, and that's been true. Frankly, I think a lot of big ventures can be both, frustrating and joyful.
Definitely. I found this startling statistic I just want to share that the US experienced a flood of baby boomer retirements in 2020. According to the Pew Research Center,
Right.
1.2 million more Americans born between 1946 and 1964 retired last year than the historical annual average. That's a lot.
Right.
So
Yeah, it's interesting what's happening. So 10 years ago, the leading edge of the baby boomers reached retirement age. So people born in 1946 in the year 2011 were 65 years old. So there were 10,000 people retiring every day. And if you think about it, that was 10 years ago. So what does that mean? That means now, not only are there 10,000 people turning 65, there are also 10,000 people turning 75. So, so there are issues. People are around. I mean, sure, some people die between 65 and 75, but most of them survive, and I don't think it's ever too late to start something, particularly if it's exciting. And I mean, why not? Why not do it?
I love that. And I always say to a lot of my real estate investors, buy one level townhouses, because guess what? That's where all those people want to live, because they don't, they don't want the stairs. They want a one level something. So I think that's a good investment. And it's based on the statistics of the aging people. So one last thing here, we got to wrap it up, is so how has this pandemic, has that changed people's retirement goals?
Well, I find the pandemic interesting because, believe it or not, I see it as a trial run for retirement. In other words, I mean, people talk about, gee, I'm home, I'm not working, and they have issues of relationships, and all of those things happen when you retire. So, I scratch my head and say, gee, if you have problems with a pandemic, you might want to think a little bit about what you're going to do to prepare for retirement. I mean, of course, if you're not earning money, it's pretty hard to be saving money for retirement, and you may be dipping into funds, and I get that. But I'm thinking from the activity standpoint, how in many ways similarities between the two.
Okay, I see there's a couple more questions I didn't see over here in our question and answer. The other things, a couple things I want to say, in Mark's book, he has sections on health, wealth, relationship, family. It's that whole balanced life thing that he's talking about. Now, let's see, we got a question here about, Well, which is better, rolled over and cashed out to invest in something out of the stock market, or funds remain in an IRA and invest in real estate?
You want to keep things sheltered as long as you can. So, you know, if you cash things out, it's immediately taxable. Plus, if you're under 59 and a half, there's an additional 10% tax. So I've seen people end up with half the money. Whereas if you leave it in the IRA, you got 100 cents on the dollar. And if you don't like your investments, then you change them around. You can do that in an IRA. So the name of the game from the taxes is to keep things sheltered as long as you can. So Leanne, when you said, you have property and the depreciation gets used up, so it may make sense to swap one property for another. Then we're talking about something similar, is looking at how taxes affect things, and it can be profound. So whether it's depreciation or deferral of taxes. And in some situations, you can even after death, you can leave things inside an IRA and have that being paid out to the next generation. They're not as generous as they used to be, but you can postpone paying taxes if you set things up properly, even beyond death, at least somewhat. So wait as long as you possibly can. Otherwise, you have a lot less money to work with.
Makes a lot of sense to me. Okay, I want to put up just so we can close it off here. And I want to show you, I'm going to share screen here. First off, I'm Leanne Riley, and I do free strategy sessions, and you can schedule one if you want right there. Just go to my website and you can figure it out. And next, here is how you contact Mark. And two things about contacting Mark. It's mark@seriousabout.retiring.com. You can check out his website over there too. But if you write him an email, he'll read it, and then you can ask to be on his newsletter too. And like I said, that's how I met him and found him. And I just really liked his attitude, and it really has made me think just now interviewing him of some of the things that I should take care of here as I do my own planning. So thank you so much, Mark, for being here today with us. Everybody stayed on. That's always exciting to me. That shows that you had great information. There's a few more real estate questions. I'll answer those privately to you folks. So I want to keep the timeline, and we're 3 minutes over. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you next month talking about real estate. Thank you, Mark. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, now I got to end my live here, and then we can chat. I got to figure it out here. There it is. Okay. There's still 10 people on. Maybe they want an answer to their question. Okay, I ended the live. We got the 10 people because, well, actually, it's a real estate question. Cash flow from rental property can be variable. How can we manage the variability of cash flow when retired? Any insight there?
Well, I think if you've got multiple objectives, you can use multiple investments. So that's why I was saying, as a possibility, if you've got something somewhere else that is liquid, whether it's in the bank or an investment or whatever, you can tap into that as needed.
So really, this follows your diversity theory.
Yeah.
Just keep things
multiple
diversified.
objectives, multiple tools to achieve those objectives. Because there's no one thing that works perfectly for everything.
And, I always say not all your eggs in one basket, because then if one goes south, you still got another one.
Right.
Okay. And Jeffrey says, if a property is paid off and producing good income, what's the pros and cons of selling it in retirement?
Well, like any other investment, if you have a substantial gain on it, you're going to pay taxes on it. But people use a 1031 exchange
Yes.
as one way to switch properties. I'm not sure what happens to the depreciation when you do that.
You actually have to add it back in.
Yeah. So,
But as long as you're moving up in your 1031, it doesn't matter. So I know lots of investors, that's just what they keep doing. And then they just pass it to the kids. Now they never have to pay the taxes.
right.
That's how a lot of families have grown huge estates. Yeah. So, okay. I think that handles all of our questions. So thank you so much. Like I said, good to meet you, and we'll chat again, Mark.